Also at the State House right now, a bill to restrict what you can buy with SNAP benefits. The proposal looks to keep, quote, low nutrient, high sugar and artificially sweetened foods out of the grocery carts. It would only let you buy a certain amount of things like soda, juice, or energy drinks. Similar changes went into effect January 1st across 5 other states. This bill would also require SNAP recipients to recertify every 12 months. Around their birthday, roughly 1 in 8 Georgians use the SNAP program.